Following video is brought to you by BSEN, Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and as always, leave a comment, and thank you for enjoying the video.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Kings of Causeway podcast. I'm your host, Pat Burke, joined as always by Ryan Coffey. Coffey, how's this week treating you, buddy? How's that the long-term hangover from St. Patty's Day still kicking you?
Yeah, not too bad. Definitely still recovering from that one. You know me when I don't need an excuse to drink Jameson, but I guess when there is a healthy one, it goes even worse. I spent some time in Boston actually on the Saturday. Went to a piano bar, D's Keys, out in Seaport. Pretty fun. You kind of get to sing along to whatever kind of songs people pay for or suggest or recommend. And they have a live band kind of perform it and you sing along. So pretty fun. How'd your St. Patrick's Day go?
Did all right. Went to a local Irish bar. Fortunately, we got there early. We started super early, got in there before the crowds got too nuts, and the weather wasn't all that great. So it seemed like a lot of people were kind of slower out the gates, which was really nice. Didn't have to fight all day to make my way to the bar. So it was good. It was good. My hands down my favorite holiday. Going back, got that video memory popped up on my phone of what we were doing St. Patty's Day 2019. I think we had spent the earlier days or earlier part of the day when seeing the Murphs at House of Blues, and then got absolutely tanked leading up to that Bruins game, which was absolutely epic.
Yeah, it was awesome. I feel like there needs to – obviously, I was out during the Flyers game, but I feel like there needs to be an automatic Bruins game on St. Patrick's Day. I mean, I feel like if they could make it, it should be like a Chicago versus Boston type game or something like that. That would be cool.
That'd be great.
Year, but
that'd be great, especially with Chicago being kind of the other city that really takes this holiday really seriously. That would be all right. Here we are fixing the NHL. We're not 5 minutes into the podcast and we're already fixing the NHL for the better. Exactly. It was honestly weird because looking back, Bruins usually have a home game on St. Patty's Day, and not only did we not play on the day itself, we were away. So just a little bit of unusual. The Celtics got to actually play on St. Patty's Day for the first time in. I mean, I can't remember the last time that happened. It used to be, I think, the Causeway Day where they used to do one and then the other, but I guess we've gone away with that for some reason. But it is what it is. NHL. I know you guys are big fans of the pod. Let's just schedule some Bruins Blackhawks on St. Patty's Day every year. We can do it. We'll just flip flop cities every year. It'll be it'll make it a thing instead of 900 outdoor games in baseball stadiums. Let's make this a new tradition, huh?
Yeah, it would be a good new tradition for sure. I mean, the Winter Classics were cool when they first started. Unfortunately, the one I got to go to was at Gillette when the Canadians absolutely kicked our face in. And they probably had the worst halftime performance I've ever seen. Also, so that was not a fun time. So I'd like to see them get back to, less outdoor games and maybe some more kind of like traditions or, Canadians, Bruins on certain nights, things like that. That would be cool to watch for sure.
Yep. Gotta get back to some of the original six stuff and really kind of, those are that's the bread and butter. All right. Anyway, before we are definitely going to talk about that Flyers game, a game that I was not absent for. I was watching it, made sure that we had it on where we were. But before that, speaking of those Canadians who have been known to kick our ass in the past, not quite the juggernaut they sometimes are this year, but they sure as heck played the Bruins tough. They took us to overtime. We did get the win, but that was a nail biter a game. What were your takes on that?
Yeah, it was interesting. I know. I think if I remember correctly, looking back to last week, I gave a bet which was under, which hit. But I said I was pretty confident in parlaying that with Bruins puck line, which means they have to win by 2. Obviously, that didn't happen. If you look at it, I think there were plenty of chances for us to win by 2. I mean, I go back to one. I want to say it was the end of the second, maybe early third, where Pasta. I mean, he pulled off a great move on the breakaway, had a wide open net, and just kind of muffed the backhand in. He just kind of fumbled it. So I mean, that you could take as an example. Weird that both teams are 7 power plays, 0 for 7 across the board.
I would love to pull up some advanced metrics on that to see how often there's more than 6 power plays combined in a game where no one capitalizes on any of them. That's if that's not the lone time, it's got to be one of only a handful. That's just an insane amount of uneven ice to have no goals.
Not often. The concerning thing, it's interesting because on one hand we played really good defensively. I'd like to see us pull away in shots against the Canadians. It was only ended up being 24-19, and I think we pulled away there kind of in the overtime anyway. But, I mean, it was good defensively, and we ended up winning it. Obviously, we got to see Jake DeBrusk with some slick hands, which has kind of been, consistent over the last week and a half. He's been pulling off some pretty nice goals, which is good to see. So, would love to see us blow them out, 5-1, but at the end of the day, I'll take 2-1 against the Canadians all day.
Yep. Anytime you can beat Montreal, it's a win you take away, and 2 points, big 2 points for us as we, battle neck and neck with the Panthers there. We'll get to that in a little bit. Next up on the slate was that Saturday game, in Philadelphia, and a game that, boy, 2 separate times it really looks like the Bruins had it in hand, and 2 times we let it absolutely crater, making it really, really nervous. But still, at the end of the day, pulling out a 6-5 gutsy win.
Yeah, they really hurt me on this one. As I mentioned, I didn't get to watch this live. It was kind of one of those ones I streamed on my phone out to dinner and out for St. Patty's Day. But, geez, I mean – I had it. I picked perfectly, Pat, on my betting lines. I picked Coyle and Zacha to each have a point. I picked the over in the game. Unfortunately, the Bruins, who looked like they were just pulling this game out like we expected, decided to let Philly to claw back in, and they ruined my puck line, which obviously, as you know, Bruins have to win by 2. I mean, not only that, but they pull it, they pull ahead 6-4 and then give up the 6-5. I mean, that's just painful from a betting standpoint. Looking at it, obviously it was a back and forth game, a lot of good offense, not a lot of good defense. Again, pretty close in shots, and the power play, we were 1 for 2. Philly was 0 for 3. So in another game, we were actually exactly 50-50 on faceoffs. So both of these games were exactly 50%. I don't know. I guess you can forgive the Montreal game. You can't forgive them making a close one in Philly. Like pick one. You can have one close, but not 2 against teams that are this bad. And it just goes back to it's now a theme, and it's consistent. It's not like kind of a weak thing. It is now 2 months of we are just giving up leads, giving up games, making them closer than they need to be. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned that we're not going to be able to clamp down defensively in the playoffs. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it was a great game to watch. Unfortunately, it wasn't one that I got to watch live. So what were your thoughts? What did you take out of it since you probably watched it?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those watching it, not having the sound, not being in a Boston hockey bar was not, I wasn't going to get the sound, but I was my own commentator, and I do that job better than anybody. Like, pair me up with Jack and Brick, and Nesson's got a solid lineup for the next 20 years. No, it was everything great about the Bruins, and then it was everything concerning about the Bruins. All wrapped up in 60 minutes of hockey, and truly wire to wire. Charlie Coyle doing nothing. I say nothing because I can't say anything good. Somebody scored. It might have been Charlie. It might not have been, who knows? I don't. Morgan Geekie, Beach, DeBrusk again with some silky mitts. And Heinen ultimately netting the winner. It was a level of scoring diversity that is crucial, and then a level of defensive lapses that just aren't going to fly in the playoffs, to be perfectly honest. Like that type of behavior and lack of discipline or ability to kill a game off is not going to fly. I don't care who you're playing in the playoffs. It's just not going to fly. Optimistically, the next game, the last game of the week, against an Ottawa team who doesn't have the same level of desperation that Philadelphia does. I think, Tortorella gets his players playing, even if they're 19 games out of a playoff spot and there's only one game left, those guys are going to skate for torts. They just do. The Flyers are still kind of fighting for something a little bit. And so, maybe that desperation kind of fueled that late comeback, but against an Ottawa team that, in my opinion, is a little more, skilled, but doesn't really have all that much to play for. The Bruins, again, were able to score a ton of goals, and this time put the clamps on defensively. Outside of the just can't close out a period. That last 2 seconds left in the period, and they get a cheap goal very shortly after we had scored. In my opinion, still unacceptable, but to then come out in the third and just say, you know what, we're just going to handle our business. Really, really positive. You'd like to see 6-2 against both Philly and Ottawa, but you got to have, at some point, you got to show me that you can close out a game. They closed out this game.
Yeah, on one hand, all 3 games, Canadiens, Flyers, Ottawa, you're expecting, or you'd like to see like a 5-2 or something like that, kind of a blowout. You got a little bit of everything, I guess. But at the end of the day, to your point, we pulled out wins in all 3. And I think that's all that matters. The last one stood out to me, to your point. There's one guy on that team that you don't just let walk down the slot and keep fucking going, and that is Brady Tkachuk. And we just, all we had to do, 4 seconds left in the period, and we just let him throw it on net, get to the front, chip it up, and he beat Swayman on, I think it was Swayman on the third shot there. Was it Swayman or was it?
No, it was Linus.
It was Allmark. It was Linus. Yeah. So either way, though, you can't let Brady Tkachuk kind of do that. It's good to see clearly kind of something happened, or whether it was coaching or it was Marchand saying, "Boys, what the fuck was that?" Clear, like you said, they turned it on, they put on the rocket fuel, and they closed it out. Never surprises you to see David Pastrnak score a hat trick anymore. It's kind of just like commonplace at this point, which is strange. So good to see him get that. But we'll talk about this in the free skate. There's a lot to like about these last 3 games, and we'll save it for the free skate. But there's a lot of positives I do want to kind of focus on during our free skate, because I know it's pretty open ended today.
Yeah. Pasternak, it was less a surprise that he got a hat trick, but the nature of that third goal was why he's just blind. He was just flicking it around. He was as surprised as anybody. A, that shot was on net. B, that it trickled through. The just childlike surprise on his face as he wheels around is like, oh my God, that went in was like that. That's I love to see. I love the way. I love the energy that Pasta shows up day in and day out without fail. The guy's always smiling. The guy loves playing hockey. The guy loves playing hockey in this city. You gotta love a guy that loves playing in your town. So absolutely love the David Pasternak. The other takeaway I had from that, on a positive note, Brazeau. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. Brazeau's second goal. In that whole sequence, we're on the power play. He ends up one-on-one there and can't close the deal. He's a rookie. He's not going to be known for having, the dirty dangles or anything like that. That's not his game. I get that. Still would like to see him bury it. But rather than feel sorry for himself and frustrated and skate over to the bench and change out and slam his stick and throw his water bottle, he gets back on defense, cycles around, joins the next rush, and gets a goal. That type of hunger is great to see out of a young guy. So I love the energy that Pasta brought. I love the determination that Brazeau had. Yes, we've got a lot to break down in the free skate about the positives and some of the fears that these 3 games get. But all in all, 3 games, 3 wins, cannot ask for more than that. So we just won't.
No, can't ask for that. And I just want to say how, like, to your point, having someone like Pasta who's just like, infatuated with the game and everything about it. I don't know if you got a chance to watch kind of the Nesson post game, but when he got his hat trick, all these stats go on the ice. Someone threw a bear costume. That's what he chose. And he takes
that has got to stay around. Remember 2011. It was either 11 or the failed run in 13. I want to say it was 11. That Army jacket got passed around with the Army Ranger patch. Myself as a former Ranger, that meant a lot to me. And this is way back before I had ever done that, to know that was where I was headed. And then to see that, like, that was awesome for me. That's something I'll always hold. But it was something like that galvanized and brought the team together. Having that, the bear skin head, and I'm sure it's got the little handhold paws down. If that becomes the player of the game goes to the interview wearing the bear, that could be the little type thing that in hockey matters so much to the locker room. That was awesome to see. It was awesome to see him take that and run with it. Maybe he keeps that one for himself, but if that suddenly turns into this year's locker room thing, I would not have a problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And it was funny to hear, like, his post game. He was having fun with obviously the bear costume. The press kind of kept asking him, but then they asked him about the hat trick, and to your point, he goes, "Yeah, like I've obviously had 17 now, but he was like, I've never had one with 2 backhand goals and a tip." And I think it was I don't think it was Jack and Brick. Might have been Andrew Raycroft was like, you rarely see Pasta with a hat trick without a one-timer. Like,
true.
It's true. It was probably the first time you saw him score it in different ways. So I thought that was an interesting call out, and kind of, the whole group, the press, Pasta were having fun after the game, which you love to see after a win like this.
Yep. Gotta keep it loose. Gotta, take the pressure off yourselves, take the pressure off everything. Just cut loose, have a bit of fun. We got 3 wins, total of 14 goals, 4. That means a lot of guys were on the score sheet. That means a lot of, people were playing relatively well or relatively clutch. Getting into our 3 stars of the week, top down. Actually, let's just go let's go back and forth one at a time.
Yeah.
Who's your first star?
I mean, it's tough because there's a lot to like. There's an obvious one with like a hat trick. It's tough. I mean, I don't know if putting them in order this week is definitely tough. I think I've kind of picked my 3, but I think I got to go with Morgan Geeky, and
Okay.
there's one kind of reason for that, and it's we'll get into this during the free skate because if I remember correctly, you put a certain someone in the sin bin last week, but I think Morgan Geeky has shown that he can be moved up and down the lineup and continue it. So when he had that hot streak, it was with Pasternak, and when the coach kind of mixes up the lines, Monty kind of mixes them up. You go, is Geeky, still going to perform on the third line? The answer is absolutely. Rips an absolute rocket by the goalie on kind of an old school, just walk down the hash marks and rip a slap shot. And he continues that in Ottawa with some silky assists. So, didn't have the most stats out of everyone this week, but boy, did he contribute, and his play's still there. Hasn't dropped off just by moving him down to the third line, which we'll talk about it, but that's what you're going to need in the playoffs. I think one of our advantages that are starting to come out is being able to kind of move people up and down and wherever the heck we want. And that's a big advantage going into playoffs. So long spiel there, but Geeky's number one for me. Who do you got going number one?
All right, so my number one is honestly pretty chalk, but when a superstar plays like a superstar all week, you got to give the superstar his flowers. David Pasternak, goals, assists, he showed up in games that it was really important to show up. The assist, the Czech pair assisting Danton Heinen in Montreal or against Montreal. Showing up in the assists in against Philly, and then obviously the hat trick and more points against Ottawa. That's a guy that in the last 12 games is going to need to be as fine as a razor's edge if we're going to be able to make a deep run. And so you like to see the multifaceted elements of his game start coming to the forefront and start hitting pay dirt a little bit. So. It's chalk for sure, but it's got to be pasta.
Yeah, maybe foreshadowing for our next segment, but you need your stars to step up, and so pastas need to stand up or step up a little bit more than normal compared to some of our other stars. So yeah, that's an obvious one with a hat trick, and just even every game he kind of stepped up. Makes sense to me. Number two, this is tough because there's really there's three or four guys that could all fall into this kind of right behind the number one star category. I'm going with someone because I don't think I've picked him too much in this place, and I have liked what he's done. And the theme of mine are kind of maybe someone who didn't do something or did something and kept going. And so I'm picking Jake DeBrusk for my number two. He obviously we gave him that call out with the trade deadline and kind of some of his words, and we go, here we go again. Is it going to be Jake wanting to get shipped because he's not, playing well? And I think he took that the right way, and he started to pick up his play. I want to say it was the Philadelphia game. He had that goal where he had a pass. He could have just ripped it on net. Instead, he kind of goes by a defender, goes by a goalie, goes around the goalie, pulls it back, tucks it in. When he's pulling off goals like that just shows where he's at in his game. Other times he's holding tight on the stick and he'll just take every shot he can possibly get. That shows that he's kind of in tune with his game and pulling off goals like that. So, don't want to speak to it too much more, but Jake DeBrusk is on his game the last 10 days or so he's getting number two for me.
Great pick. He's to your point that goal against Philly is the epitome of Jake DeBrusk when he is loose and confident, when he feels like he is when he thinks his game showed up that day, he is a world beater. Like he is, which is what we've been so frustrated with for years, is we know he's got this in his locker. You'd think he's done it enough where he knows he's got this in his locker. For whatever reason, doesn't always happen that way. It is what it is. I think it's going to be what prevents him from being as good as he possibly could be. But that's why the great ones are the great ones, and then there's a lot of good ones. He is one of the good ones with the skill set of a great one, just lacking the consistency. But But you're right. In these 10 games, he's looked great. He's looked loose. He's looked free. He's been skating hard. He's been skating fast. He's got his hands out. I love what I'm seeing from Jake DeBrusk, and that's encouraging because since he is still on this roster, and I think we both agree that is a good thing, considering, coming off of this past round, it's a good thing that Jake DeBrusk is here. We're going to need Jake DeBrusk to be the, hey, I'm worth $6.5-7 million, Jake DeBrusk, from now until the middle of June if we're going to, make a serious run. So I love to see him start picking up. I like to see him getting goals and assists. I like his teammates kind of, getting behind him. I think he is a guy that really relies on words of affirmation, maybe more than some other guys. So, if they're feeding him the right energy, he's putting out the right energy. Let's just keep, that all going in the same direction. For my second star, it was not Jake DeBrusk. Mine is a welcome return from Hampus Lindholm, anchoring this defense and contributing on the offensive side. His assist, he had assists all over the map this week, combining with a lot of different forward lines and just showing his class. Another guy that anytime you're coming off an injury, like we talked about, we don't know what it is. You say groin. I tend to agree with you based on the length of time and all that. But that's one of those ones that, could always be in the back of your mind. Am I going to do it worse? Am I going to, tweak it again? Is it going to fully tell like that? That's a real thing that it doesn't seem to be bothering him. I think we gave him the requisite time off the ice for him to fully feel confident. And now that he's back, he hasn't missed a beat. The way he is reading the game, especially in the offensive zone, is mega. And I really think that that's going to be really important, especially when some of the other D-men are having lapses in concentration, aren't necessarily on the score sheet, aren't necessarily doing their full job. He is a guy that really seems to be locked in on exactly what he's there to do and is executing really well. So he's my second star.
Yeah, and it's never been a question with him. He even back when he was on the Anaheim Ducks, like he was always kind of up, top one or top two defenseman. It doesn't matter what team you put him on, he's going to be a one or two. I think, interesting. I have loved this game since he's returned from the injury. It seems like there was no ramp up, kind of like Carla we had talked about, a month prior. My only call, and it's not even a concern because he's doing it right now, but Matty from our Bruins Bender was on last week as a guest. He called out his durability and his ability to play in the playoffs and take hits and still make those transition plays. And that, I'd say if there's any gap in his game, it's that. And it only shows up in the playoffs. It's not a regular season thing. So curious to see how durable he can be. Can he take the hits and still make those plays and not cough up pucks? That's the question mark. I think he can. So, let's just hope we see it. I hope, the durability stays up and he can still make those plays. So, I love that pick. I'm going back and forth about this. I think I'm leaning towards Danton Heinen, and it kind of follows that theme. Danton Heinen, number 3 for me. It follows the theme of kind of what Geeky did. You move Heinen up to the kind of top line and no fall off there. He contributed in lots of ways. He seems, I wish in the Canadiens game, it had been called out before. I think he has 6 goals now against the Canadiens this year, which is nuts. One of them was a hat trick game. So, that would be an interesting kind of pick to make against the Canadiens is, hey, Heinen's the Canadian killer, but he did it all week. He did it all week. So probably not an expected one. I couldn't double up with Pastrnak since you already picked him. So leaning towards Heinen on the third.
Love the pick. He's a guy. He's got a really good connection and great chemistry with the Czechs up. When he moves up to that one line, we don't see any production drop off. But at the same time, his mentality, you can move him wherever, and he's going to go produce wherever he is. In the top 12. Really, we don't really see him a lot. all the way down. But he's a guy that I think could produce anywhere. He's the the epitome of a team guy. Just wants to be out there, just wants to do whatever he can to win. And those are the greasy grinders that this team should be known for. We should have a couple of these guys that do that. So I think that's a great pick. My third one is going to go to Justin Brazeau. I love watching this guy play. He is massive, and I love watching him play. And then against Ottawa, he shows off again those mitts. Like his first goal, getting a puck where he, camping out in front of the net with that huge body, which in the playoffs is going to be massive, that you can stick somebody his size in front of a goalie, not only to clear out some people, but the goalie's going to have to move a full 1.5 feet to see around him. He is that big. But then when the shot comes through, he can effortlessly turn around, pull it back, and shelve it. God, those are the types of hands that we saw earlier in the year from James Van Riemsdyk, when we were like, oh my God, just camp him out in front of there and he's going to do that. He's got those hands and the size. Brazeau, like a guy that just skates like it's his last time on the ice every single time he's out there. And no fear, no unwillingness to get into the grimy areas, no hesitant, he doesn't hide away from a hit. He takes them, he gives them. This is a kid that I've been really impressed with. And then when he's just able to add the finesse and the hands to the score in the manner that he did, that's a guy that's a special player, I think.
Yeah, let's circle back to Brazeau, because I have a couple interesting points on him. To be honest, it was him or Heinen.
Okay.
I had a feeling where you were leaning, so I wanted to give you the floor on Brazeau, because I know he's your new favorite player. But I'm with you. He was easily making his way into the Stars. And I have some interesting points that we'll touch on in free skate, so we can jump
let's get there as fast as possible. Before we do that, we've got to throw some guys in the sin bin. After a week like this, again, 3 wins, a total of 14 goals scored, 8 against. That's a really good 2-to-1 number. You love to see that, but somebody's got to go in the sin bin. Who you putting? Doesn't have to be multiple people. Might just be one. Might be a concept. Might be a unit. Who you got?
Yeah, it honestly might just be one for me, and I foreshadowed it, but Brad Marchand. I mean, he's
son of a bitch. You and the Chowd put the same guy in the sin bin. We've got that take. We'll put it up later. He's a little concerned about Brad Marchand as well. Yet again, you guys are reading each other's minds from 15 states apart.
Yeah, it's funny. I think your dad definitely has old towny vibes in Massachusetts. I feel like he always goes with a similar opinion to me. But I mean, it's blatantly obvious his game has fallen off. And Maddie from the Benders alluded to it. Last year we kind of got caught playing some of our veterans, late into the season, whether we're trying to go for a record or whatever it may be. He's one I would be resting. He's getting older. I don't think he has a problem getting up for games, so I don't think it's a concern at this point, because I think you plug him into playoffs, you plug him into meaningful games, I think the Jets turn right back on. However, what you don't want is him being rusty, game 1, game 2, and by game 3, then he's turning it on. So I'd give him the rest. I wouldn't do it all at the end. I'd kind of space it out, maybe a game here or there, let him see kind of the game from up in the box. He's not there. And I think if I had to stick it to one point, he's trying to make passes or protect the puck more than maybe he should. Like, he used to be that guy that, like, he has a shoot first mentality.
Yep.
And I think whether it's in his own head or what, I don't think he puts himself on the same level that he was at 2 or 3 years ago. And his thought is, maybe I'm not the best person to be shooting on the ice, where he has an amazing shot. I think it's okay to make passes and be in that mold more. You've seen Pasta do it more this year, but I still want him to have that shoot first mentality. I want him to be the guy that goes, if there's a shot in the third period and we need someone to bury it, I want that to be me. That's the mentality I want him to have. If at the split second he decides, let me slide this off to someone else, great. But I think he needs to get back to, I'm a sniper. I can shoot the puck, and I can be the guy that puts the team on my back. I'm not concerned, but I think if he gets back to that, we'll easily be pulling him out of the sin bin, and we'll be watching him, hopefully have a deep playoff run as the captain, which is good.
Yeah, I agree. It might be one of those where he just needs to like you said, watch from the press box, maybe sit there with Patrice, maybe the two of them have a little reunion. They watch the game. They can talk the game. They're great friends. I'd love to see that because I think you're exactly right. And I do not mean this as an indictment against his captaincy, because I think he is a hell of a captain. But I think he's almost taken that as the captain, I now need to make sure everybody eats.
Yes.
And
agreed.
Sometimes, and we're seeing it now more and more, where he's making 1, 2, 3 extra passes, and you almost feel like guys are trying to get him the puck now, and he's just giving it right back because he's in that mode of like, oh no, I'm the captain. This is what I'm supposed to do. Because it is almost, he always kind of had that, little bit of a selfish streak, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And for a guy as skilled and as pedigreed as Brad Marchand, I don't think it can ever be a bad thing. Now, if he's taking 12 terrible shots a game and nothing's going, like, then okay, we can have that conversation. But right now, that's not the case. Right now, I'd like him to have like 3 quality shots. And the thing is, he's putting himself in the right positions. He's just not then taking the shot. I don't know if he's scared. I don't know what it is, and I'm not gonna speculate. And this is not an indictment on his leadership ability. I think he's a phenomenal leader. I think he's done an excellent job this season. I just think he might need to sit there and have somebody who's carried the mantle before just sit him down and be like, bro, it's all right. You take that shot, man. See right there where that guy's, you're usually right there. You can take that shot. I'd love, even if they can't sit down together, just call Patrice, be like, hey, buddy, what are you seeing? What do you, where, and that's a level of respect between them that no one's going to have their feelings hurt. No one's going to have their ego bruised or anything like that. Couple of games, watch from the top, come back down, start to try and implement that. And I think he'll be off and running. And I think we're going to need him, in big moments, in big games, as a guy that's been there. So, I agree. We'd like, he's in the box for right now, but I think there's a very reasonable way for him to get out. And I think he's going to end up pulling himself out. You just hope it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and to just quickly piggyback off of that, I think, you nailed it. So I was watching one of the Behind the Bees episode. It was the Toronto game, and it's, we wonder what goes on in the locker room. Obviously, sometimes that sometimes highlights it. Jim Montgomery, as the period was ending, it was a close game at that point. I want to say 1-1. He just pulled Brad aside on the bench and goes, I'm not coming into the locker room. You tell them what to do. We close out the game 4-1. So
yep.
I think you nailed it. Like, he is a great captain. I think he's taken it too far towards his game and thinking everyone needs to eat, and he needs to be selfish. I mean, sitting with Patrice is a great idea, because want to know what Patrice never turned down is a shot from the slot. Sitting in that bumper, as much as he passed and as much as he was declining and wanted to spread the wealth, he's not turning down a shot from the slot.
He believed he was the best person to take that shot from that area. So, all right, Brad, go find where and I think we all know exactly where his ideal shot is. Anytime you're teed up in and around that area, that needs to just be you, buddy. They're looking for you. I think the team wants him to get back into that mentality. So I think it's going to work out. I would love to catch a shot of them, when we host the Rangers tomorrow. I'd love to see the two of them just sitting there in their black on black suits, just watching it. That'd be great for me. But all right. I'm going to have to zag then. I can't let, you, the Chowd, and me all have the same guy going. And so if I'm looking, I'm going to have to pick somebody just for, I didn't love the defensive collapse against Philadelphia. And the guy that was on the ice for a lot of those goals against late was Mr. McAvoy.
Yeah.
You know, but really, I'm splitting hairs here. That defensive unit as a whole kind of struggled in that game. Once we took a big lead, I don't know if it was mental. It sure didn't look like we were skating with the same intensity on the defensive end. Once we went a couple goals up, it really seemed like we thought they were going to pack it in, and then they didn't. And then we were kind of shell shocked, and then we were in trouble, and then we were okay again, and then we were in trouble again. You know, McAvoy as the de facto leader of that defense, you know, you got to take charge of your unit. And at some point, you know, or at some time, that just means you've got to stand up bigger and taller than everybody else and just be the guy to stem the bleeding a little bit. So McAvoy's going to go in the box for me.
We got an impromptu guest. She says,
I see that.
She says, McAvoy, do better defense. And she says, Pat, are you taking she was asking if you're taking Jim Montgomery out of the sin bin from last week.
Yep. You know, that is a great topic to kick off the free skate segment, because absolutely, you know, he's been in, he's been out, he's been in, he's out again. He got this team going, you know, in a rivalry game. He got a win, a gritty, gutsy win. And then in 2 back-to-back games, he had the boys, you know, on the offensive side scoring 6 goals a game. You know, watched a defensive collapse a little bit and then made some corrections to not let it happen again. He recalled Beecher, which I think is whew, that kid is going to be clutch. He is a face-off winning machine late in games in the playoffs. I think he's going to be clutch. I'd love for him to stick around. But yeah, no, Jim Montgomery for me, the line moves he made, the thing, little details that he paid attention to, gets him out of the sin bin for sure. What were your thoughts on the way he coached and managed this team the last couple games?
I mean, yeah, for me, he must have heard you, because perfection. I mean, he switched up the lines at the right time. I think we touched on it last week, but I can't remember. Like, I think we said something along the lines of these 3 games are teams we should all beat. Now's the time to mix things up if you want to try it, because, you know, at the end of the day, if you mix things up and you lose a game, you can maybe blame it on that. So he mixed them up. It clicked. We were scoring goals. You know, part of this free skate segment, I do want to talk about what's going on with the defense, but I think we're shoring up the offense. I am more confident than ever in our offensive capabilities going into this postseason than I have ever been. I mean, if you just look at it, I think our top 2 lines can get it done. What I'm most excited about, you know, there's been flashes of the old Merlot line.
Yep.
We might have the best 3rd and 4th line in the entire league right now. You know, I'm very excited about our depth of scoring, and I think it's highlighted kind of the moves he made this week, how that can happen. You talked about Brazeau. You know, we can talk about it now or we can talk about it later. He's replaced JVR and Lucic, both, if not either one. I think he's solidified his spot as kind of that big man, the guy that can create space, the guy that can create puck possession and open up for some of these skills guys. And if we have a Jesper Boqvist and a Beecher, 2 guys that we clearly have a ton of skill next to a Brazeau on our 4th line, I don't think there's any other 4th line in the league that's going to put up with that. So
I 100%.
I'm excited.
I 100% agree on the Brazeau point of not only taking the mantle of the big guy. He's executing it at 5-on-5. He's executing it on special teams. He's getting in there. He's grinding. He'll work from behind the net. He'll work in front of the net. He'll work standing literally on top of the opposing netminder and still find a way to dirty dangle around and house a goal. And then I knew the kid was fast, but Jesper Boqvist's jets and the way he set the edges and got around, and you know, in that Ottawa game was one of those, okay, if our depth guys are doing that regularly, oh, okay, this is this is a team that is going to be able to get it done on the offensive zone. Come playoff times when the ice feels like it's 10% smaller and the hits feel like they're 10% harder, and there's just no space unless you make it. Beecher can make the space. Boquist can skate through the space. That's a depth line that to your point, I'd agree on third and fourth lines probably being the best. I would challenge somebody challenge that this week on Twitter. Find me a better third or fourth line that can hang with these guys in a no shit playoff situation. I can't think of one from any of the playoff teams, and we tried to work through that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and I mean Morgan Geeky's playing like he's a first or second line player, and he's on our third line now after these moves. I mean, just a nod to Montgomery. Obviously, power play had been in rough shape. Putting Brazeau on there, I mean, I don't know if any other coach in the league would kind of look at a fourth liner like that and say, let's give him the shot. So, I mean, he's giving confidence in all the right places. Jacob Lauko, even though he didn't do anything crazy this week, I could see his physicality, and he was bringing.
Agreed. Yep.
He had the fight in him. So even guys that are not producing
are producing. Like
they
might not be on the score sheet, but they're doing everything that you need to do to be successful in the playoffs. This is such an unselfish sport that I think it's really good to also call out the guys that may not be having their name in lights as just being absolutely vital performers. A Jakob Lauko throwing the body like that at the right times in smart scenarios, in crucial situations is mega. So no, that's a great point.
Yeah, and you alluded to it, but I think complementary hockey, right, amongst your lines. You can use the example, you can't have a full team of Cristiano Ronaldos because who's going to pass him the ball?
Who's going to pass him the ball or play defense?
Exactly. So you obviously need players to complement. I want to go down the lineup. I think you have David Pastrnak, what a shooter. Zacha can be a shooter, and he's kind of a good two-way player, can kind of mix in that passing. However, Danton Heinen, absolute worker bee. So he's going to be the guy working to get those to the puck. They're obviously both from the check. They can be creative and score goals. Brad Marchand, Coyle, and DeBrusk. Marchand and DeBrusk, although Marchand's not taking his chance to shoot, both really good shooters and have hands. I'd say all three of them can make passes. And again, Coyle's a possession guy, can work hard, two-way game. I'll skip over the third line for now, but if you go to the Boqvist, Beecher, and Brazeau line, you have a big guy that can solidify himself in front of the net. You called out Boqvist has speed. He has hands. He's intellectually smart when it comes to game. Then Beecher will put in the work, but he's also quick as hell. So if Beecher can keep up with Boqvist, maybe you start seeing a couple more 2-on-1s from Brazeau's hard work. I mean, and then you can go back to the third line. I mean, Geeky, Frederick, and Lauko, let's just call them all hard workers. They can all kind of play and score when you need them to. So, I mean, I'm loving our depth. I'm loving the way they're complementing players. And I love how going into the playoffs, you can move Brad Marchand up. You can pull Heinen back. You can move Geeky up. You can pull Coyle back. I mean, that's an advantage for us on top of kind of having the two goalie pairs that I think could mask or be the makeup of our potential bad defensive play. I don't think we're going to get back to the place we were last year defensively. So if we can make up for it in other areas, I think those are a few areas that maybe can do it for us. What are your thoughts?
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. So not going to harp necessarily or double down on the top 12. Like, no, we're seeing it the exact same way. It makes a ton of sense how they're organizing it. It makes a ton of sense how they're moving pieces, how they're figuring out who works with who. That's all on Monty, and that's absolutely great. You mentioned, cracks and in not just skill, but also in mentality and performance of this defense. With 12 games left, we're in a battle for first place. A battle that, 6 months ago, nobody would have thought we'd have been in. But here we are. It is an absolute dogfight with the Florida Panthers for the number 1 seed overall in the East. Defense is going to be under the microscope. We are playing, I think in our last 12 games, I think 8 of them are against playoff opposition. So they are going to be tested. If there is a time to have the defense step up, it is going to be over these next 12 games. Talk to me a little bit about why, if we win this battle for first place, and hopefully the West just keeps doing what they're doing and they take the President's Trophy over there, because then we're guaranteed that an Eastern team's likely going to win it. If we get first place, we're playing the second wild card, which currently is Detroit, who just went on like a 7-game losing streak and nobody was able to really catch them. So that just seems to be an absolute, I don't even know what's going on in the quagmire that is the second wildcard spot and down. But then if we finish in second place to Florida, and Florida goes and plays Detroit, we get that juicy matchup against Toronto because of this new playoff structure, which might be a little unfamiliar to casual or just recent fans. Break down a little bit the current playoff format and why those are realistically our only 2 first-round options.
Yeah, so it even me, I always have to go back. It's definitely changed in the last couple of years. But long story short, you kind of have the conference winner playing the last wild card. So the absolute 8 seed is playing the absolute 1 seed in the conference. Then you take kind of the second division winner is going to go ahead and play the second or the better wild card position. So think of it as kind of your, even though it's not necessarily a 2 seed, technically it's a division winner from the other side of it playing the 7 seed. Then you automatically get the 2 and 3 from the 2 divisions. So that's why if we come in second, we're basically playing Toronto no matter what. If we come in first, it's looking like Detroit. Which I have an interesting opinion here. You know, a lot of people would say, "Oh, let's take Detroit. You know, maybe Toronto loses. Let's get an easy matchup out of the way with Detroit." I'm a little cautious of that for 2 reasons. Yes, it might give our players a chance to get confidence. However, it might also give our defense a chance to get false confidence. It's a team they probably can play well against defensively. What does that do come the second round? Maybe they think, oh, we're good, and then the holes start to, come undone. So I'd almost rather play at Toronto because we have the blueprint. We've beat them twice, 4-1 here. I'd rather make our defense step up first and in that first round and continue the momentum than maybe have an easier matchup and think they've kind of, put the concrete over the cracks per se, and then maybe fall apart in the second round. So I'm leaning towards the Toronto matchup. I think we have the blueprint. And to me, you'd rather have the blueprint and execute in that blueprint than the other way. So it'll be interesting. To your point, I'm fine with the 1 seed. I just don't want the President's Cup. So hopefully these 8 games against or 8 games in the last 12 against kind of playoff contenders, maybe we shake out in Florida kind of takes that. But what are your thoughts? I mean, that's kind of my initial thoughts on how it could shake out.
So I think we both are hoping for the same result for a little bit different reasons. And so I also want Toronto, and I want Toronto early. We covered this last week with Maddie from the Bruins Benders, but that would be the blockbuster matchup of the first round. It would be must-see TV for every true hockey fan across the country, and who doesn't love seeing the Bruins on national television as often as possible. That's great. But the real reason I want Toronto early is because, like you say, hey, it might give our defense some false confidence if we go down and handle Detroit. Like I think we would. I have no doubt. We would have said this about Florida last year, but I have no doubt we'd be able to beat this Detroit team this year. But my fear would be that Toronto would build their own momentum potentially. If they knock off a Florida team that just came from the Cup, and now here they are, and now Toronto beats them up and gets through, whenever it is we would see them, would be one of those, oh God, now they're all feeling it too. They know how to score in the playoffs. They know how to win a playoff game. They know how to win a playoff series. I would much rather just, they're the younger brother. We own them mentally for the last 20 something years. We own them. I would love to show up before night one, playoff game numbered 1. The montage would all be about 2013, would all be about all of these crushing defeats we have inflicted on them, their fan zones crying, and everybody is starting from zero. And I think starting from zero in the playoffs, we are the better team. To your point, we have the blueprint. We know how to go and execute it before they get any irrational confidence, because I firmly believe that playoff irrational confidence in hockey turns into actual results. How often do we see guys that have no business acting like they're going to win, act like they're going to win, and then go on to win? Like
it's
Florida
true.
chirping at us down 1-3 last year. And you're like, no, get out of here. Get out. And then all of a sudden just watching, just like, oh my God, they're like, they literally just willed their way through. I don't want any of these guys having any hope or belief that comes from winning a playoff series. I don't want there's the monkey off our back. We won the series. Let's go. Let's go get this Bruins team. It's like, no, I would rather keep you under my heel, send you out to holiday early, go away. Even if technically on paper, it's the harder of the 2 rounds, I think the Bruins come out better in the long run if we play Toronto first.
Yeah, no, agreed. And you brought up a point too, is it's like, whether it's Florida or Toronto that comes out of that, if they do end up playing, it's like one of them is going to have more confidence than they showed against us. And it's, Florida obviously is going to have a lot of confidence against us. So I'd rather, someone like Florida plays Detroit and then think, oh, we're good, we'll go beat the Bruins again.
Oh yeah, we know how. That's right. We do win in the playoffs. That's right. That is who we are. And then here comes Boston, fresh off of crushing Toronto. Oh,
exactly.
hang on.
And it's not
Last
Detroit.
year was a fluke, guys. Here we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
all of a sudden, here's a real team. Yeah. Here's, I agree. We're both looking for the same thing for a lot of the same reasons. And I just, you never want to root for the team to lose. I kind of thought Florida had a stranglehold on the 1 seed 10 days ago, especially after adding Tarasenko. Like it was like, okay, Florida's going to do the thing. And they really just haven't broken away the way I think anybody was kind of expecting them to, which has turned this into a little bit of with that 6-2 win, the Bruins are now technically sitting in first place. If the playoffs started tonight, we would be hosting Detroit. So, it's one of those, we'll see how the next 12 games wins out. Obviously, I'd love to win all 12. I think if we win all 12, I mean, at that point, you're just, all right, this team's just gelling and it's not going to matter. And we should just go. The reality is we're not going to win all 12. That's just not how hockey works. Not this year anyway. This isn't last year's Bruins team. No, I don't know if any team could win 12 in a row this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I know everyone, and it's true. I mean, sometimes you just have to go by what happens, but everyone's kind of superstitious about that President's Cup, and if we won all 12, we'd probably get that. So
we probably would. And I don't want it. I don't want it.
Here's my thing. I'm after last year, I'm a lot less concerned about something like that. I think, look, we set a record last year and we got knocked out by the 8th seed.
Yep.
Part of me is like, give us a President's Cup and we'll set another record. We'll show you, we'll be the first team to win off of a President's Cup. Either way, I'm fine with it. The point is we just got to be playing Bruins hockey. We got to be playing our cup of tea when it comes time for that. So yeah, I'm excited. I know Puppy's ringing the bells for me to let her out, so I know we're wrapping up for Pete over at Foxborough Fellas.
All right,
anyway,
yeah. Speaking of Bruins
got?
hockey, we've got 3 games coming up before we're going to be sitting down with each other again this time next week. Starting off tomorrow, home against the Rangers. Before we get to that, we all picked 3 Bruins wins. We thought they were mandatory last week. We all got 3 Bruins wins. None of us correctly picked the score line. I was close. Close doesn't count. So it's a level draw. I've been drinking all pod, so there's my penance. You owe me a shot later on for our tie, because ties are for losers. But coming into these next 3 games, home against New York, at Philly, at Florida. The home against New York is going to be quite a test. They're a bit hot right now. Could be a really tough game. Could be another one of those games where if the Bruins come out and play Bruins hockey, they just beat them. I honestly think that that's what's going to happen, and I have a 4-2 Bruins win at home at the Garden against a reputable playoff team. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, I mean, the Rangers are hot. I could see this being a final in the East, to be completely honest. I think this could be the 2 teams that kind of have it all.
Absolutely.
To mix in just real quick, I did want to mix in kind of the betting lines, but just throwing them out there. Bruins puck line was -1.5 for tomorrow at +180. Bruins money line -135. They have it at under 5.5, but they're giving you +100 odds. I'm having a tough time picking a bet tomorrow. It might be one of those games where I don't bet. I'd be hard to take the puck line because I think it's a close game. So if you're going to do anything, I kind of like maybe Bruins money line straight up, or doing Bruins money line in the under 5.5 to get some better odds. I think it's going to be a close one. I mean, I think because you picked already, I'm going to be the devil's advocate and unfortunately take a loss here. I'm going 3-2 New York. 3-2 New York Rangers.
It's fine. If you beat me by picking against the Bruins, I will happily drink all that I'm due and send you. At least the fans will know who's the better Bruins fan between the two of us when the season's over. All right. Philadelphia back down in Philly, a desperate, maybe they'll still be desperate. Maybe they won't. Torts won't be coming off a suspension. We don't think, but I don't know. That guy goes crazy every other week, it seems nowadays. So he very well could just be entirely suspended. Who knows? This one, I think we know how to score against these guys. We've just scored a lot against these guys. I don't think we fold again. Especially this quick turnaround. I've got a 5-1 Bruins win.
You nailed it. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think we're going to pot goals, and I don't think we're going to give up as many. But I keep leaning towards this one because it's the only score that's actually won me some points on this podcast. So I'm going 4-1.
Yep. All right.
4-1. And it's not away matinee at Philly, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because those of you watching March Madness, it'll be out of the way before bulk of the games, at least.
Yep. Or hopefully it can fit in on one of those multi-views where you can have some college basketball going, also have the Bruins going. So the last game of our calendar week is going to be at the Florida Panthers, a game that you and I have been to a lot of times that have good memories and some that have blurred memories down in Sunrise, Florida. I imagine that their arena will be more packed than when we used to go, because now apparently they also have fans. Who knew? All these Florida teams suddenly have hockey fans that rep their gear. Rematch of last year's playoff. Obviously, Florida's going all in. Could be a decisive battle or a decisive contest in the battle for that number 1 overall seed in the East. To be honest, I think after a 5-1 explosion against Philadelphia, I think the Bruins trip up down in Florida. It's a tough place to play. It's a team that's kind of going to be looking for something. It might also be one of those. This might be a rest game. for Jim Montgomery, this might be where he pulls the plug on a couple of guys for, at the end of a trip, especially since it's the front end of a back-to-back. I do believe it is that classic spring back-to-back, Florida to Tampa, Tampa being next Wednesday, Florida being next Tuesday. We will be covering the Tampa game on our podcast next week. But I think we dropped that first game of this doubleheader against Florida, and I have a 3-1 loss in Sunrise.
Interesting. There's finally going to be some variation in our picks. So my theory I know we're not picking all of next week, but my theory of losing the one in the Rangers is I think we go on a 4-game winning streak after that. Okay. So I think we knock off Philly, Florida, Tampa, and the Capitals. So I'm going with a win in Florida. I think if there's a game that we could lose, I'm looking at it a different way. I think we have rest. We come off of Philly. I think Florida's in that mode where they've brought in some new guys and they're in a little bit of a learning curve phase. And obviously, you've pointed out, we thought they were running away with kind of the first place. They've kind of been wishy-washy. So I'm in the opposite camp. I think we're going to win in Florida. I think the game to watch out for might be Tampa coming off of the back-to-back. So Florida, I think we actually handle them, but they put up some goals. So I'm going with a 4-2 win in Florida.
All right. Well, that's it's a good spread. Odds are, on two of them, there are going to be at a minimum 2 points changing hands. That gets me right back into the thick of things. If I'm right on both, it really might bury me if I'm wrong on both. It's a big week for us from a gambling perspective in our own internal bracket. That's the upcoming week. Anything that you want to cover before we get out of here?
No, nothing for me. I think that wraps it. I just want to give a shout out to Pete, obviously on our Foxborough Fellas podcast. He's going live with a special guest in about 8 minutes now. And he also does the creative for our podcast. So all those kind of posts you see with mine and Pat's faces and Dave Portnoy and the great lady over with all the patches on her yellow jumpsuit from the Garden. Pete does that work. So I want to give a quick shout out to him before he goes live in a few minutes here. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you go and jump over to the Foxborough Fellas podcast. They're being super secretive about this guest, which tells me it's going to be a great guest. And I'm sure that as the draft comes ever closer and free agency enters its second week, I'm sure there's a lot to dive into. I know Pat's Nation's a little bit frustrated with the lack of moves that may be going on. I'm sure they'll cover that. Mike Williams going to the Jets. I'm sure they'll cover that. But that is coming up at the top of the hour. All right, buddy, let's get out of here. I got to go finalize some March Madness brackets. Make sure that I'm all dialed in on that. Catch the Celtics tonight. And then you and I are going to talk during the Bruins. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Kings of Causeway. Follow the network as a whole at BSEN_617. Like we mentioned, Dynasty Proud, going for Banner 18. Celtics are live every week. Foxborough Fellas, the Pesky Podcast. We're going to get another roundup coming soon, I'm sure. So catch all the great Boston content. We are absolute Muppets over here, and it's probably the best homer takes you're going to get. So tune in to all of them. Until next Wednesday, back to our normal time next Wednesday, 7:00 Eastern. Until then, Ryan Coffey, good job by you, buddy.
Good job, Pat. See you next week.
See you, buddy.